And we are live on Facebook. It is amazing to be with everyone again for another evening of book study this night on chapters 5 and 6 of Saint Germain on Alchemy with yours truly, Laura JeH, and Francoise and Laura JeH, who has been co-hosting this experience with me throughout the Human Aura by Katumi, and now this experience. Francoise, how are you this evening?
I'm just fine. And yourself?
I am spectacular. So excited.
I saw a few of your presentation on Facebook. It's really interesting what you are doing.
Oh, well, thank you. That's exciting. I don't quite know specifically what it is other than just shifting energy and moving energy and alchemizing in a way that I don't necessarily know how to say what I do. And I say this because it's relevant for others too, I believe, at this turning point time in humanity's history, when so many of us are really stepping into our gifts and saying, well, there's not really a box for what I do, but like, let's just do it. And then you can experience it and see how it sits and fits for you. So thank you.
I find it interesting.
I appreciate that very much, Francoise, and I genuinely appreciate you co-hosting this experience with me each week, and I appreciate you doing the work ahead of time in preparing a summary and resume of each chapter that we read together. So if we want to just jump right in tonight, if anybody is watching the replay, you'll be able to see the Zoom link, so you can actually join us live or in the replay. You'll know for next time that you'll be able to join us Thursdays 8 p.m. for the next two chapters after this night's. But here is a website that has actually been prepared for all of us to be able to enjoy the 4 pillars of wisdom for the age of Aquarius. So these are the 4 teachings that, or the 4 books that are really foundational pillars for the experience of alchemy. Unless, Francoise, do you have a better explanation of what the 4 pillars are, as someone who has been in the teachings of the Ascended Masters for quite some time?
Well, you know, the 4 pillars means when you say foundation, we know that with these 4 pillars, we can go on and have a solid building of what we are going through. It's kind of adventure in a spiritual way. And these 4 pillars of wisdom are just something we can build with and go on with, I would say, a lot of certainty. We are going in the right direction with that. Yeah.
Well, in a world like now, the gift of certainty is one of the greatest things that we can give ourselves. So thank you for bringing that point to the fore, Francoise. And also, I'll point out here at the top, I'm going to actually open the secret keys in a separate tab, so that when we actually finish reading the chapters that we're going to get into now, then we'll actually be able to use the secret keys, which is a prayer or a pearl call that is to extract more information, which information is light is information. So we're actually programming ourselves, CELLS, to extract more of the light that otherwise we may not have been able to see or access before then we prepared ourselves with the pearl call. So we're going to do that after we do the first chapter reading, which this week, since we've already done chapters 1 through 4, we are going to now be reading chapter 5. And if you would do us the honor of sharing that summary, Francoise?
Yes, with pleasure. So in this chapter, right now, at the present hour, we must be utilizing the time that in which we are right now, the here and now, is a chalice of spiritual opportunity. The power to change is within every man, and the power to change can be at every moment. And we must prefer this power to change and venerate it above every limiting condition in which we find ourselves collectively right now, and see the alchemy of self expand, because we use every moment for a changing transformation. So every one of us in this chapter, we will see that everyone should see his life as amenable to change for the better, and himself as possessing the capability to surmount any condition at will. We have that power, and that's the title, The Need, the Power, and the Motive of Change. And the proof of alchemical laws is universally and necessarily seen through their action in man. So it's all in us. And if in this chapter we have some keys, how we have the power, how we can change and answer our need of the moment.
Amazing. Thank you, Francoise. We'll dig right into this chapter. And if you care to go back on your own time and read the other chapters, by all means, it just means you're able to gain access to even deeper layers of light within the chapters. So we will get started. Chapter 5, The Need, Power, and Motive of Change. The now of the present hour must be utilized as a chalice of spiritual opportunity. Life must be indulged by its highest objectives, honored by the adoration of exalting principles, and merited by selfless service. Beloved people, the power to change is within every man. Prefer this power and venerate it above every limiting condition, and watch the alchemy of self expand. Transmute the lies of shadowed substance that arrest your spirit's upward soaring. Realize that conditions of human limitation are but ghosts that parade upon the stage of mortal existence, only to be laid to rest forever by eternal reality. Each man must become aware of his choices and select either freedom or fetters as he explores the chemistry of his present stage, brings it into focus upon the mirror of truth, and then determines to alter each base condition, constructing within the crucible of the hour that hallowed progress which is born of eternal perception. Destruct then the base and senseless mania of our origin in matter consciousness, that possessive nature, the perversion of the mother, which, failing to assess the fullness of cosmic possibilities, limits itself to the baubles and trinkets of temporal possession. Let heaven use your consciousness to expand its window into the infinite, and then behold at last the beautiful possibilities present in the most dire outer conditions. Give wealth to the poor in spirit, understanding to the rich, and compassion to everyone. So often a life stream may have in abundance the very qualities in which his neighbor is lacking. Exchange your virtues by exalting the valleys of another, and trust life to remove the peaks of his pride as well as your own. Transmute the conditions in your own world that you do not want by determined and persistent effort. Every divine being who exalts the life of God within you knows that the power to do these things is in your hands this very day, within the reach of your intelligence and spirit. Construct those spires of attainment which compose the celestial city, and enfold the world of physical substance, the conscious mind, and the feelings of your heart with the radiance of immortal spheres. Gazing at the universe with renewed hope, behold the need to sustain the proper regard. Vanity has held sway upon earth far too long. Wondrous opportunities, like spirits in the night, have vanished with the dawn, resisted by the cold shackles that imprison the soul in a mantle of disintegrating moments descending in the glass of the hours. The son of Elizabeth inquired of the Christ, "Art thou he that should come, or look we for another?" The reply of the Christ referred to his miraculous accomplishments. The deaf were made to hear, the blind to see, and the lame to walk. The lesson contained in his answer urges each life stream to accept the greatness of his own reality. All should see that life has brought to them its great and wondrous graces through the I am he consciousness, which must emerge from the cave of materiality. The gross separation of the whole into weak and incomplete components. Men's concept of themselves as particles remote from their source, obliges their struggle through human misfortune instead of their acceptance of the grandiose concept of cooperative oneness, charged with the power of love and freedom unbounded. Truth raises all and defeats no one, save those enemies of righteousness whose shadowed misunderstanding makes them little more than savage animals in the jungle of human creation. Even these are given more compassion by life than they deserve. This I know because the record is laid before me. Beloved Kuan Yin has called for mercy and given it freely to all without limit and without price. This is God's great gift. He always returns more love to life than life ever gives to him. Selflessly, the magnitude of God sends forth a torrent of love when a few droplets would suffice, and thereby sweeps mankind on the upward pilgrim way, regardless of men's erroneous notions. Now, looking to another is not the solution to your problems, nor will it win the intended fulfillment God holds for thee, blessed Son of God. As an alchemist enlightened by the torch of divine knowledge, aware of the magnificence of true selfhood, you must summon the strength from the invisible realm and use the processes of transmutative alchemy within your own world and affairs to master daily all outer conditions by the spiritual means and physical appurtenances available to you. To make bricks without straw, you may not always be a requirement and may seem most difficult, but to the determined alchemist, it is merely an obstacle to be overcome. No one who occupies the earth at present should limit his recognition of the now is the hour concept, which mounts each wave of opposition and rides it forward into the crest of victory. Everyone should see his life at any age or time as amenable to change for the better, and himself as possessing the capability to surmount any condition at will. Law and justice are natural factors of control, but the universe, guided by its own law, has the creative methods of transcending that law, approximating cosmic dimensions and expanding geometrically into infinity. Friends of freedom must disallow old ideas as quickly as they are able and discard outworn concepts as outmoded garments. It was difficult for men to accept that the world was round in Columbus's day. They dogmatically subscribed to the theory that the earth was flat. Chemical formulas of basic and complex matter are simple to the chemist, but to the unlearned seem but a jumble of symbols. Our purpose in this course is not merely to confer knowledge, but to effect your acceptance of that knowledge by an almost a priori methodology. This is needed because the categorical proof of alchemical laws is universally and necessarily seen through their action in man. Let there be light within your personal orbit and within the sphere of your being. Life is not an experiment, but mankind have experimented with it. Humanity has ridden the tide of the peripheral world of effects while neglecting the inner causative realm. All unhappiness is rooted in basic factors of cause. Mend the flaws, and you shall be self-healed and self-revealed. I am interested in bringing about a complete reversal of deleterious human attitudes and replacing them by such right methods and concepts that each life can quickly rise out of the human force field with its heavy gravitational magnetism that hinders mankind's progressive ascension. By transmutation, let every would-be alchemist first act to transform himself here and now and gain thereby an inner peace and a sense of outer accomplishment, especially at the close of each life's term. Surely, unless both an interior and an exterior focus be maintained where good is accented, one's concentration of positive control, which has the power to alter substance within and without, cannot manifest the blessing God intends all to have and exercise each day. Beloved ones, a life lived for reward or punishment is not a raison d'etre. The destiny inherent within life has escaped the intelligent comprehension of many on earth and is anchored in but a few. Thousands daily take pleasure in the sweepstakes, the races, or games of chance, hoping against fantastic odds to become a winner, whilst they ignore the most certain of all laws, the cosmic purpose. Those who deny God or life itself do so out of a dearth of genuine experience. They have not witnessed the dawn of pure reason in themselves. They prefer to accept those popular ideas associated with non gullibility. Well, the losses of such as these are legion. And while I do not expect to change every individual, I do repeat my admonishment here that all might be inspired to keep on keeping on. The search is worth all effort. I know the law, the alchemy of action is its own proof. Those who desire to enter into debate to prove the non existence of the non essentiality of a first cause may not wish to lose the transient pleasure of so doing. But if they accede to the divine logic, the golden grain of truth will replace the husks of pride in the stifling, airtight systems of the human intellect, which disdains the verification of any knowledge not experienced by the physical senses. Frequently, individuals like to think they are en rapport with hoary heeds of wisdom. Now, I think that the centuries I lived before my ascension and those which have since transpired have entitled me to some distinction in this respect. Neither ego nor human motive would inspire me to write this series. I am aware only of the deep love I feel for the earth as a unit of cosmic progress, and I desire to impart herein something of the sweet simplicity of that love and the wisdom that is guided thereby. Let us see now how reasonable it is to suppose that enough people serving in harmony can change the most calcified condition and create an influx of love that will sweep the hills and valleys with an inspired movement to heal the breach between the realities of eternal alchemy, the all chemistry of God, and the artificialities which rise from the caves of base error. Then the emerging gold of personal integrity and personal integration will be a gift equally shared by all. Individual man will reflect pure genius, and the social order will reflect the kingdom of heaven. The forces that would bind mankind their past errors and thus prevent the flame of peace from being released in the present must themselves be bound as in heaven, so on earth. And mankind must arise to sound the death knell of these forces here and now, ere war shall cease. Freedom from confusion can be found only in the true understanding of life and the alchemy of being. Step by step, I am leading you to the right understanding of alchemy. In the first lessons, I reminded you of responsibility, your responsibility to prove the law of your being by the right use of alchemy. Now I am reminding you of the need to effect changes in yourself where change is desirable. Finally, I shall instruct you in the art and practice of precipitation. A prerequisite to applying the methods of precipitation is knowing what you want to precipitate. It was this truth which Jesus taught in the Lord's Prayer, and when he said, "Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done." The will of God, the will of the higher, is the will of your real self, the most important part of you. Because the lesser you, although it retains through the soul the capacity to contact this higher self, is but a bundle of impulses crowded with bits of human knowledge. I am advocating that you become acquainted with the reality of yourself. For this reality is the genius, in you that can give the Aladdin, symbolizing the alchemist who rubs the lamp of pure knowledge, the right desires of his immortal being. Ponder now the need to change. Thine is the kingdom, the power to change. Thine is the power, and the motive to change. Thine is the glory. And evolve out of the passing flame of earnestness the permanent sun of renewed hope. Graciously I am, Saint Germain. And to seal this chapter in, we're going to use the pearl call. And in here we put Master Saint Germain. In the name of beloved Lord Maitreya, Almoira, and Guru Ma, I ask and command my I Am Presence and beloved Master Saint Germain to lower into my heart center your momentum of light and the energy of the dictation I have just read in order to transmute a corresponding portion of my human consciousness and human creation. Absorb my human consciousness and return it to me requalified and purified. Pass the flame of your higher consciousness through the density and debris of my lower consciousness. Take in the energy of my microscopic consciousness to your heart's altar. Consume and transmute it, and return to me the purified substance, the original innocence that is my higher consciousness. Perfect. Francoise, how was that chapter for you?
Well, it's so wonderful to read something that elevate, for let's say that elevate me above the daily problem and worldly problem through which we are going through, so we can have a better perspective that we are not, I would say, condemned to go through this, but we can look further and higher and see that we can do something. That's for me this meant this chapter. Yeah.
This chapter and this whole experience is so symbolically significant and literally significant. The fact that we're reading it aloud at this particular time in humanity's history. And I absolutely love the mention of integrity and integration, because I'd never made that connection. But interestingly, when I was 18 and I actually got my very first tattoo, the word that I actually got tattooed onto me is integrity in big block letters. But I got it done I got it done right here. And so it's kind of an inappropriate place to be sharing integrity with the world from. But at the same time, I love the fact that I wear that and I hold that, because when I first came across the word integrity, I didn't fully understand what it meant. But there was a part of me that understood that if I was to wear anything on my body for the rest of my life, that would be something worthwhile having. And I've since come to understand that integrity is about becoming whole, integrating all of those lost soul fragments from all of the not now moments where we've lost aspects of ourselves because fear trapped us out of where our power lies in the moment. And so going back and recollecting all of those soul fragments is actually how we stay in integrity. And when we're in integrity, we don't make those choices that steal power from us or give that power and plug that power into sources that do not have our best interest at heart, which then makes me want to say the mainstream is poisonous. Are you drinking from it? Or are you choosing to say it's poisoned and I need to find a better supply, which is why you would be here listening to us in this chapter reading this evening. So anything else you want to add in there before we go on to chapter 6, Francoise?
No, I think we have sum up the whole thing right now.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Well, let's hear your resume for chapter 6 and then we'll get to it.
Chapter 6. Molding factors. Experience is not the sole way to expand our consciousness. The word improving is a spiritual lesson to be mastered. Improving. The words impression and proving both combine here to denote that life brings its impressions to the heart of our consciousness to prove the worth of each impression. So this is something that is very interesting because the masters know the power of the word. They teach us the spoken word. And now when Saint Germain said impression and proving make the word improving, this is bringing it's showing us that life is bringing impression on us and our consciousness. So he tells us that the mind of Christ is the synonymous of the mind of light, and it characterizes one whose attunement is specifically directed to the higher intelligence. So there's a kind of spiral where we are going up. Not staying on flat on somewhere. We are going up in consciousness. in mind, in heart. And the high road is the way of the alchemist, whose heart is in the shining glory all the way, that his pilgrim feet walk the dusty ways of man, and he is transmuting the dust into purest radiance. So that's what this chapter is all about, how we can go forward and upward at the same time.
I absolutely love that I appreciate your sharing that resume, Francoise, and we'll dig into the molding factors. I haven't read this since the last time I read this chapter live earlier in the year, so I'm excited to get to it. And there's the part of me that is curious as to whether it's going to take us into the emotional spectrums of the downward spirals of emotion and the upward spirals of being, which are states of being and states of emotion, and that distinction being part of what I've worked on with the emotional high rise of awareness theory that I've used based on Esther Hicks's emotional guidance system applied to the theory of a high rise, which is the same address but a completely different perspective based on where we are in the building. And then it's reminding me of Matt Kahn's book, Everything is Here to Help You, where he actually mentions the spiral staircase of awareness, that we're all going up this spiral staircase. So those were what came to mind with your reading, Francoise. So thank you very much. And now I'll do my job and I'll read chapter 6, Molding Factors. Oh, the mold, there's the rub. I and the mold too contaminates. But how beautiful is the original hope of heaven for each life stream. Following the descent into form and material substance come those formative years when the pressures, both clamorous and silent, make their impression upon the clean, white consciousness of the individual. Beginning with the first fond gawking of parents and kin, there is a gradual buildup of environmental factors which serve to create patterns and concepts upon the tender screen of the embryonic mind. These molding factors continue to exert their multifarious influence upon the plastic personality of man. That selfhood, then, which is first identified wholly with good God, is affected and shaped by myriad experience patterns. Thus does example for woe or for weal sculpt the mind and being of man. Experience is not, however, the sole way to expand consciousness. For each moment spent with God or one of his cosmic band serves to exalt and broaden individual consciousness, conveying illumination on the instant in the twinkling of an eye. The empirical proof of human imperfection is epitomized in the past-present lives of mass humanity. Life in bondage and life in peril decries the meaning of existence. Religion and hope for salvation arise in the human heart and burgeon from the human tree. And he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. The alchemy of change was needed in Jesus's day and is still needed because all too frequently the mold is imperfect and the product cannot excel its matrix. I had declared that the mold too contaminates. And thus I direct your attention to the untransmuted accumulation of human filth and misery, which, like trash, litters the sidewalks of the human consciousness, reeking forth from the literary stalls of the world. The crusty mold masquerades as legitimate culture while undermining the decency of lusty souls. Freedom of the press was not intended to give license to the corrupters of youthful minds. Neither was it intended to be used to confuse and disorganize the populace, flooding their brains with jingoistic propaganda and prejudicial discriminations. Rather, the power of light was intended to emanate from a free press and exalt everyone into a rightful sense of cosmic destiny. America, my beloved country, how precious are the footsteps of your heroes sung and unsung, but every mother's heart can take a just pride in offering with the consent of the governed the fruit of her life, sons and daughters of excellence who, from the heart of this beloved nation, serve the cause of freedom across the earth. Because each dire effect of the mold and mold must be counteracted, I am releasing these remarks pertaining to personal freedom through the correct use of alchemy. I do not say that more will not be spoken on the subject to parallel and conclude the course, but herein is my specific advice to those who would use alchemy to further their own personal advancement in the divine plan fulfilled and thus change their present circumstances for the better. Those who are familiar with the process of refining precious metals are aware of the intense heat needed to liquefy many metals. Heat is also necessary to release impurities and foreign material from the pure metal. Separation of the dross occurs in two ways. One, a portion is vaporized and passes into the very atmosphere of the room wherein the refining furnace is operating. And two, much of this unwanted substance is brought to the surface and skimmed off by the alert refiner. Apropos of this, few parents exist who are equipped with this type of instruction, which would enable their children to know from the beginning the tenets of their full freedom. I do not say that the world is not full of aspiration and good intentions, but the highways so paved do not seem to lead to the best places. Thus it happens that the children of the world become wiser in each succeeding generation in the arts and artifices of war, and in the many customs of world society without ever becoming too stirred by the regenerate and peaceful society of saints. In the main, few are born and come to years with a right understanding of the universal purpose, and of necessity, personal destinies which often run cross-current to the universal flow are periodically thwarted and broken. The pages of history are full of the downfall of tyrants and the overthrow of monsters of misdirected purpose. Failures and successes in many fields draw recognition, while the average man moves into the burial ground of mediocrity. Nothing is further from the plan of God and nature than these counterfeits of the golden mean. How ill-equipped is the concept of a destiny which can be shaped by human misconceptions. How noble are they who acknowledge an intellect, a mind, a spiritual overseer, and a creator whose forethought, greater even than that of his emissaries, is revealed as a mountain of universal purpose to be scaled by the brave who do not hesitate or fear to trust the wisdom of those early climbers of the rugged summit peaks. Those linked to the lifeline of these spiritual pioneers are given greater guidance, for the elder brothers of the race lovingly extend to them the freedom of the ages as a gift of faith. This gift is extended to all who, by accepting that faith, can likewise summon the will to pursue it, and the perseverance to let it fashion them in a mold made purer still, and in an accumulation of that purity whose reality is the treasure of heaven. Beloved friends of freedom, you stand now at the gateway to higher alchemical truths, which I am releasing in the 7th lesson. But it is needful for you to contemplate your life in a manner wholly in keeping with the spirit of universal alchemy. No longer act from the vanity of desiring recognition, but from the valor of necessary achievement and because service is needed and worthy in itself. God needs a vehicle through which to manifest in the world of form, and you lend your hands and feet to him. You must understand the mystery of oneness, whereby a thread of contact between each life and its source serves to connect all who live to one great central switchboard. Here the interaction of thought and feeling is guarded lest it hurt any part of life in the holy mountain of God. Consider all the beauty of life which can be. Perceive this as pure gold. All causes of unhappiness, every vibration of discord, fear, doubt, suspicion, condemnation, criticism, judgment, self-righteousness, and all negative traits are part of either the human mold or the mold which must be purged, as dross before purity can so regenerate a life stream as to enable the individual to partake in the waters of life freely. It is not enough that men come to drink when the invitation from higher sources has gone forth. They must make new skins to retain the new wine of infinite goodness and purpose. This is spiritual alchemy, and wise are they who first master it in themselves before attempting to govern the elements in others or in nature. For thus is karma justified by wisdom and rendered benign. Sin does not come to the door of such a practitioner, for his motives, purpose, and methods are pure, and his acts are also just. Gracious alchemists, the very fact that you are studying this course should denote your interest in improving. In the very word improving is a spiritual lesson to be mastered. The words impression and proving combine here to denote that life brings its impressions to the heart of your consciousness to prove the worth of each impression. Every idle thought is thereby brought to judgment before the magnificence that is the higher glory of God, the upper light in the vaulted chamber of heaven. The mind of Christ is synonymous with the mind of light and characterizes one whose attunement is specifically directed to the higher intelligence. The inflow of impressions from the world at large should be directed by the student for comparison and proof to the pure patterns of the purposes of heaven. When these are improved upon by the alchemical fire, they become part of each man's fort of useful objects and ideas, permanent matrices for good, drawing onto the consciousness of man more of their kind. Thus is the kingdom of selfhood expanded on wings of heavenly wisdom, proved day after day by the speech uttered from the hills of spiritual watchfulness. The sincere alchemist knows that the vast intelligence that created all that is expands mighty wings of light over the all of the cosmos. As above in the macrocosm, so below in the microcosm, in the miniaturized world of appearance, in this intelligence individualized. The watchful care of God ever manifests to his wondrous purposes as a guardian presence, who seeks not the defilement, but the glorious fulfillment of each person in whom dwells the flame of Almighty, ever-present life. So-called physical death does not represent the end of being. It merely divides eternal life into compartments of identity and experience whereby expansion and opportunity can be utilized to the fullest, and each outworn mold discarded. Forgotten fragments can be pieced together by the seeker and woven strand by strand into a tapestry of such beauty as to thrill the beholder with a sense of gratitude for the perfection and glory present in each day of eternity. I am aware of human discouragement caused by identifying with elements of disintegration in society. I know full well the deceits practiced in the name of religion. But my concern is not so much with these matters as it is with those lives that do emerge from the crucible of experience with a wonderful garment patined with pure gold. Your life need never be vacant, for life watches you, and life is intelligent and considerate. Life is tangible and real. Life is earnest and tender. Life is dramatic and moving towards glory. The high road is distinguished from the low road, is the way of the alchemist, whose heart is in the shining glory all the day, and all the way that his pilgrim feet walk the dusty ways of man, transmuting, and transmuting that dust into purest radiance. I am the life, I am the truth, and I am the way. Saint Germain. Namaste. We'll read the pearl call again, inserting Master Saint Germain here. In the name of beloved Lord Maitreya, Almoira, and Guru Ma, I ask and command my I Am Presence and beloved Master Saint Germain to lower into my heart center your momentum of light and the energy of the dictation I have just read in order to transmute a corresponding portion of my human consciousness and human creation. Absorb my human consciousness and return it to me requalified and purified. Pass the flame of your higher consciousness through the density and debris of my lower consciousness. Take in the energy of my microscopic consciousness to your heart's altar. Consume and transmute it and return to me the purified substance, the original innocence that is my higher consciousness. And so it is.
Wow. This chapter is so, Saint Germain said it so perfectly. What is our identity? Are we what we have received as culture and knowledge and every console we have received since our childhood, everything that we have received from others, from our parents and other kind of authority on us? Or are we who we are inside of us, with our source. So this is the way. This is the way of Jesus. This is the way that the Ascended Master Saint Germain is explaining to us, that we have to choose our identity, the one that is temporary, or the one that is eternal.
Yes. Yes. And there was a clearing that I needed to do in that expression. So pay attention when there is a movement that needs to happen from within the vessel, whether it's a cough or a sneeze or a fart or whatever it is that just comes up as energy needing to move from the easiest outlet possible. So mine just happened to come up as a cough in that moment, and I muted it out, but I just wanted to acknowledge it, because so often we can look at things as if, nothing's a miracle. And then you can also look at that very same scenario as if everything is a miracle. And if we just learn to actually read what's showing up for us, we could look at it as if it was just a cough, or we could look at it as if it was my vessel making space for an idea that was needing to have something moved out of the way in order for the new idea to be able to sit and integrate into my form. So that's my belief system, my BS. Take it, leave it. You've had more BS belief systems that have an incredible power to them if you choose to use them. And that ultimately is the greatest way that you can be the alchemy or the alchemist of your own life. And that is by understanding that the 6 most important letters in the law of attraction are action. So very much walking the path. And as I'm reading this chapter and I'm thinking about all of the activism I'm involved in, and really working to help shift the consciousness, and it's not even about waking people up anymore. But what's so important about listening to this chapter as I was reading it for myself, and I wonder if others are in a similar boat, is to understand that if we keep going to protests or rallies, which hasn't ever actually been my thing, though when I went to the one because I was guided to, then I got that summons that I've been dealing with ever since. But I feel like that was a gift to be able to actually need to learn what I've learned in the last many months since getting that summons for attending that rally. But the point is I wasn't even going to go to that rally when I got the summons, because when I was invited the night before, I heard Mother Teresa's words of, I will never attend an anti-war rally, but host a rally for peace and I will be there. And I wasn't going to go because I knew that. And yet then I was woke up at 3:00 that morning and it was like, go to the rally, see if you can speak. So I did. And then I got a summons 2.5 weeks later, and I've been dealing with it with lawful notice and learning about the mixed war being between the private and the public. Because if we think that we're in the public sphere and we forget about the power we have in our private capacity, which is where the alchemy truly exists, though it is in the public sphere that the power seems to be. If we don't make that connection, then we give the public sphere our private power. And what we really need to work on doing is understanding how all of those circumstances are helping us call our power back to ourselves. To say that when we're fighting against anything, our power is out here where my fist is. But when we're actually breathing together and we're unifying, it's so much more powerful for anybody to observe, because nobody wants to get involved with angry and people, because that is a chaotic energy that doesn't feel fun, because it's not actually integrated, because it's all out here and it's in the field of consciousness. That if we actually are willing to change how we're showing up, which is the shift that I'm making after having been to Soulshine Festival and connected with so many amazing people, and I'm integrating all of those experiences while I'm dealing with the summons, that's also an experience I've been integrating. And what I realize is that if we can actually create an experience where we can come to actually embody peace, love, forgiveness, the ability to transmute our circumstances individually and collectively, if we can come into a space of common unity in community where we are willing to hold that vibration of peace and love and all things good, that's when then we start magnetizing those who are so fearful they're willing to buy into the BS of this mainstream poisoned narrative. Because we haven't done what we need to do to be responsible enough to make it safe for them to come over our way. Because sharing the truth doesn't matter. But at this point, we have to understand that if somebody hasn't opened their eyes to see what's actually going on behind the lies, they don't want to, because it doesn't feel safe enough for them to. And so instead of trying to break them out of their bubbles, what if we just make our bubble so beautiful they want in? And then we create a safe space for them to come. And then we understand how that changes everything, because we've changed, and then our vibe changes, and that's the energetic signature we're sending out that people are receiving, which then they can actually take hold of that which we're hoping to contribute.
Well, that's a good program. I'm just thinking about the identity, which as Saint Germain was speaking. And what I hear when I hear you speaking, I just see that you are trying to manifest your identity, and you are searching for your real identity to express.
Did you see the lights turn off?
Yes, I saw that.
Literally in that moment. Like, okay, thank you, Francoise. Verified. Nothing's an accident or nothing's
we all have an identity, but we are not necessarily conscious of the meaning of this identity. Sometimes our identity is the one that we have been given by our parents, our peers, our boss, or whatever. And sometimes we look at ourselves and we discover we are not what the people are thinking we are. And so this is the beginning of a search for our real identity. So your way of finding your identity is really wonderful. And in the world right now, there's a lot of youth trying to find their identity among all these things going on, where there's not much, I would say, not much future to look for expressing our identity or something like that. So let's say, like Saint Germain, inside of us, there is this holy place where we are who we are, the I am that I am, the Christ in us. And the rest is our social identity or our family identity. And we are not meant to judge these identities we discover maybe is false. And so we are not meant to judge that, but just to accept that, till today, that's what I think it was me, but it's not my real me. So I'm going out and find my real identity, or sometimes it's better to go inside of us instead of going outward to find it, but to go inside and to really find what in our heart, who we really are. And when we know that, who we really are, where we feel it, then we can become it more and more in the outward way, expressing of ourselves.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And I did actually want to just quickly share the chart of the I am presence.
Yes, please. Yeah.
To ShambhalaTempleOfLight.com. If anyone's interested in being part of a service on Sunday or on Saturday nights at 7 o'clock, you can actually just come to Shambhala Temple of Light. And I love this question with the city of Shambhala here. A time comes in the life of every individual to ask, who am I and why am I here? And then this,
that's the topic of tonight.
Exactly. Exactly. And then this chart here is actually the chart of the divine self. And so this is said to be us down at the bottom. And if we actually come in a little further, what we'll see is that this is said to be the sacred chamber of the heart, where the threefold flame of wisdom, power, and love burn. And where Francoise was saying, there is a spark within us that connects us to the I am that I am above that, and the Christ consciousness in between that acts as the filter to make sure that the light that we're receiving we can handle, because this aspect of us actually tempers the filtration of that light to make sure that we don't get blasted when that charge of energy comes direct from our source connection. It comes down to the base of that threefold plume that allows us to then balance love, wisdom, and power. So I wanted to just bring this visual into the picture, since you had indirectly mentioned it, Francoise. Is there anything you'd like to share about this image before?
See, we are always connected, unless we don't want to be connected, because we have free will. So even if we are not consciously connected, we are connected. And depending on our free will, we can always be connected with our Christ self and our beloved Maria I am presence. It's God individualized in us. So here we are at the bottom in the violet flame. It's the flame of the Holy Spirit. So we are the temple of the Holy Spirit, the temple of the light, the temple of the Christ. And we do our daily life, our work, our mission, our helping others, or working, or eating, or whatever we have to do, because we are on earth in a matter. But I would say the mystery, and at the same time, the kind of miracle we have to learn about us, is that we are so much connected that we can become this light of the Christ, this consciousness of the I am presence. This is the path. This is every day we can become more and more who we are in reality in our heart. So the heart is where everything is written, and where we can come back and connect it with this reality divine in us.
So it's the center point field.
Center point.
So yes, in the CIA gateway process, that would be that center point in between the right and the left hemispheres in the brain, but then the heart is ultimately that connecting point, because the fall out of the Garden of Eden was from the heart into the head. That was the reverse of where
Yes,
our power.
yes. We live in a world where we are almost all the time in our mind. Oh, am I okay? Is it the right thing to do? And we are always in the mind. But when we go into the heart, we see more clearly. And we understand also much better than when we are in our intellect or our mental discussion all the time. So the heart is the point of the center of our life. If we can make it, we can choose to do that. And it's the best way to communicate also with others.
Yeah. Well, if we're not connecting with our hearts and we're only connecting with our heads, there's a disconnect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And knowledge is so oftentimes not ours, right? Until we've lived it and brought it into the heart. If we're up here, we're not in our power. So thank you for emphasizing that point tonight, Francoise, and for sharing this experience with us again. I'll look forward to next week, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, we will be back for chapters 7 and 8 of Pillar 2 in the teachings. And as mentioned, if you would like to actually have an opportunity to check out the website, I'll just pull that up again. It is higherconsciousness.ca. or it's fourpillars.higherconsciousness.com. So definitely feel free to go to the 4 pillars there on the home site, fourpillars.higherconsciousness.ca, and you will be able to enjoy. I said calm before, so I'm going to edit that out. And gotta love editing and then not being able to do it live, but to know that if you're live and you're hearing the mistakes, then just keep going, because ultimately if we stop, then we've lost, because oftentimes it's just a matter of getting up and getting up and getting up and getting up until then finally we get through. So that would be my biggest lesson for today. Just keep going and keep trying and keep refining, and if you make a mistake, just let it go, because that's not where your power is.
You know, a mistake is an opportunity to learn.
Woo! Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So that is wonderful. We'll end off for this evening. Thank you very much, Francoise JeH, Laura JeH. Leave a comment down below. Let us know what this means to you, what it means for you, and hopefully you can join us again next week. We'll look forward to it then. Thanks so much.
Yes. See you.
Thank you. Yay! We did
And
it.
again.